we have one question here that is going to be queued up here from one of our attendees. There you go. So I'll read this aloud. So Eric Yan, thanks for joining, Eric. How could CISOs or a CISO or CIO leverage this CMMC as a differentiator for the company so it's not just a compliance exercise? Melody, you want to tackle that one?
Well, again, it's so for CMMC, for again going to be able to compete for business, I have heard from OSCs and seen that they get ranked when they go to compete for a proposal based on their compliance level. So if they had, and again, this was for a level 2 certification, that if they completed their assessment with POAMs, they got a score of 3. But if they completed it and had a final with no POAMs, they got a rating of 5. So that helped them to compete. So what that did was that drove them to, after we did their assessment and they had POAMs, they quickly addressed those POAMs and closed out before they submitted their bid. So that helped them financially. I mean, would help them financially in that sense. The other thing, though, is having that assessment and an attestation is similar to like how you like to have a SOC 2 report from other organizations, right? It gives somebody else the comfort that you are treating security seriously and how you handle it, and that you have the processes in place as needed to address concerns and mitigate incidents.
All right, thank you for that. And you know, Zach, you're out there. You're shaking hands. You're meeting folks. You're calling folks. You're talking about their journey, trying to help them with the journey. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to take it from an internal IP perspective, right? So you're able to, one, you know, again, if you're a CISO or a CIO pitching your executive staff or the board on, hey, why is this important? Well, obviously, number one is, hey, we want to do business with the DOW, right? But this isn't just a compliance exercise, right? And it's kind of like what Melody said. This is SOC 2, but on steroids. Anybody who's done SOC 2, it's under an NDA. You don't have to tell anybody if you passed or failed. You just get this report. Hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, but you went through your assessment, right? CMMC, you can actually provide actual data points. You can actually say, hey, this is what we do. We follow all of these controls. We don't have POAMs. So you're able to actually prove yourself out, right? So it's a little more extensive than like a SOC 2 or, you know, someone in the PCI industry or HIPAA, you know. So I would take it from you're protecting yourselves, which then allows you to actually start to branch outside of the DOW, right? So if you're following this compliance standard, right, and you're doing all the technical controls, one, you've established processes and procedures, not only for IT, but also for HR, for physical security, for risk management, right? You have actually established business operations, and you can now move forward and you can follow those. And now you can, maybe you're doing work with the Air Force, but now you're going to be able to go do work with American Airlines or United Airlines because of what your company does, right? So I would take a look and say, hey, we're protecting our own data, which means we should be able to do business outside of the DOW. And this is how we can say, hey, this is what we do. This is how we protect ourselves. And if you partner with us, then no matter what you share with us, all of your interactions are going to be safe and secure. So I look at it as a way to justify expanding your pipeline and actually being able to protect your own intellectual property and then also bring in more revenue.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's awesome. So, you know, all this that we're talking about, I actually have a question that I did want to ask. And one was, you know, what's one thing both of you are watching closely over the next several weeks? So the clock is ticking, and we've shared a lot. We've rehashed a few things. We've covered a few things that are already out there. But if you look at this, what is something that you're looking at over the next few weeks that you know from a close perspective? What do you think? And I'll go with you, Zach, on that one.
Yeah, so I'm keeping my ear to the ground. I'm following DOW on every potential site. I'm listening to what the CIO is putting out and the defense secretary, and I'm listening, and I want to hear what the RFIs are. I want to see what they're taking into consideration. I want to reach out to my KOs and my cores that I currently have contracts with and ask them, hey, what are you hearing on your side? Hey, we're expecting this solicitation to come out in October. So I'm sitting there and I'm wanting to know what the government is thinking and how they're operating, so that way I can adjust on my end and make sure that I'm prepared no matter what happens at the end of this 60-day pause to be able to go forward, and whether that's getting a C3PO to come in and do my certification, or if it's just understanding what the requirements within the contract are going to be. Because again, there's going to be a 60-day pause. There's going to be a lot of contracts that come out between now and Q1, well, I guess it'd be Q2 of FY27. So I'm touching my government POCs as much as possible so that I can position myself the best within the proposals.
Oh, that's great. And Melody, what are you going to be looking for or watching closely over the next few weeks?
I actually am very interested in seeing what the comments are that are being provided to the DoD. Right? Because now this gives the opportunity for OSCs and C3PAOs and all of us in the ecosystem to provide a little feedback now that we've got, like, the past year has been a huge push. We see these deadlines, we see all these requirements for who needs to be on an assessment, what level, options between enclave and enterprise, the costs, right? So I've heard from a lot of DIB members, they're like, well, how do we quantify this? And I think that the DoD was trying to understand that, but it's so vast and so broad for so many people that I think it's hard to answer. So I can't wait to see what comments are being provided. I hope that they publish them and see how they interpret it to move forward. Meanwhile, on our side, again, helping out with readiness. It's like I said, as we talked about in the previous one, I think having that level of assurity that you met CMMC requirements does help you get other business, because at least you're meeting some framework.
Right. That's great. So if we're looking at this from the standpoint, so we touch customers, we talk to them, the three of us, we've had several conversations with DIB contractors about where they are. And we have a sense of what's happening in the field, so to speak. But I'd like to get your opinion on how you're seeing this play out for the customers, right? So potential customers, existing customers, knowing that we know what we know, and they're learning. Some of these DIBs are learning as they're going. So it's kind of like trial by fire for some of these folks. Although we all know the CMMC has been around for almost a decade, or just about a decade. Mm-hmm. So Zach, how do you see this playing out?
Culture shift. You have to stay the course, right? So CMMC was designed to create a culture shift within the DIB, right? To protect not only your data, but the government's data, and to improve our cybersecurity posture as a whole from other nation states who want to outpace us and potentially harm us, right? So even with this pause, I'm going to go back to the very first thing we talked about. CMMC is not going away. Cybersecurity is not going away. Stay the course, continue to improve and refine your processes, and just keep plugging forward, because it is not going away.
And then Melody, what's your perspective on that same question in regards to how this could play out for the current customers that we have?
I don't know. I mean, we've already just. I honestly, I'm for adopting some sort of framework, and CMMC is well suited. It's not as heavy as the federal requirements. It's maybe a little bit more than the CSF cybersecurity framework, but it's because of the requirement for protecting federal data, which it's just becoming more and more critical as other countries or nation states and hackers are trying to pull together. They take this data to formulate a context and start to go after whoever it is, like all the different attacks that I have seen from experience over the last 15 plus years or so. Also like what Peter, so I see Peter, I see your question in here. So like I do agree with that statement of the penalty that a company had to pay for not meeting the requirements as they said they were, versus what it costs to get certified. That is a great point. It is a little bit cheaper to get certified and maintain than it is to get penalized.
Yeah,
And
that's
Melody,
great.
just to hop in on that, the penalty in Huntsville wasn't even near as bad as some of the other False Claims Act that we've seen in the past. They got pinged with a few $100,000, which again, it was a small company, so big loss of revenue for them, and you don't know what the other repercussions on the backside was. But we've seen universities get fined millions of dollars. We've seen big primes get fined millions of dollars. So yes, Peter, you are absolutely right. That's a one way to approach your company about it. If you're having trouble getting them on board with CMMC, is that the fine will be higher than the cost of just getting certified and maintaining.
Right. I said earlier too that the DoD is aware of this, right? So you understand that this is out there and it's happening. So that's a risk. So we're in the GRC space. We're in the risk mitigation space. That is a significant risk when you sign up as a contractor, a DIP contractor. Is you have to maintain those SPURS scores. You have to maintain those cybersecurity practices and those implementations that we talked about earlier. So to Zach's point, there, if you look it up, you can just Google, CMMC violation fines or whatever, and you'll see a laundry list of not only DIP contractors, but also institutions. Universities are also impacted by CMMC. So think about all those universities that are receiving money. So think about it that way. And I know we have a few other questions here that we might want to throw up. I think it's one here from Marcus Ford. So for the panel, what advice would the members of this panel give a small organization attempting to become certified at level 2, 4 or 5 higher? So let's see. Anyone want to tackle that one? Who wants to take that one on?
You want all 8 bullet points? Here, Melody, we'll let you go first with the first bullet point.
You could do the bullet points and then I'll fill in.
Okay, all right. So one, understand the contracts that you are going after. Right. So ask those questions when you're able to in the RFI before they do the full RFP. Go in and say, hey, it's self-attestation. Is it FCI? Is it CUI? Understand the clauses of what you're going after. And then look internally. What do you have set up? What do you don't have set up? Is it, maybe you're a company of 5, maybe just an enterprise solution right now works for you, or do you need to do an enclave versus an enterprise solution? And then honestly, I would look for some support if you don't have a full-blown IT team or compliance team. Bring somebody in like a Melody, hey, she's assessed it, right? So bring her in, have her help a little bit, and maybe there's some things you don't understand, and she can walk you through that process. But that would understand where you're at, where you need to be, and how you can do this most effectively, whether that's enterprise or an enclave solution.
And Melody, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So when I see a small organization first starting off is, again, what are the requirements? That's first. Right. What requirements do they have to meet? Then it's where will CUI be? What do you need to do with it? Where does it need to be stored? Where does it need to be transmitted? Because that is what changes the level of tools and technologies that you need. And you want to, some go for enclave, a lot of them go for enclave, smaller. But you got to consider what you intend to do with your business. Once you get certified, you've got 3 years of that certification and you're not supposed to make major changes. And I know that's been kind of a sticking point for some of the DIB people, especially because maybe they buy a business, maybe they spin off, maybe they acquire something new, or now they've grown and they've doubled in size. So there are a lot of considerations, but it is possible to start small and then go from there. And again, I do think that having somebody help you interpret, because I've been on certain assessments where they thought they were doing really well. And when we go in and assess them, because we hit at a very granular level, they did not end up doing as well as they thought they were and had to go back and reconsider some things. So it's definitely good to have expertise to help out.
Well, and that's great. So, you said some things, both of you, when we talk about, and I said this earlier, I said leadership alignment. When we talk about these things that you should be doing, could be doing, have to do, you have to have that leadership alignment at the top. And I'll give you a great example. You know that you have to have a certain level of technical implementation, technology to help you secure that data. That's an investment. So you have to make sure you all are aligned on making that investment. And we all have heard, and this is part of the reason why this pause is happening, some DIBs are saying, hey, we may need you to step away from doing business with the DOD because we can't afford some of these implementations. So these are key decisions that at the leadership ranks, you have to make that within your organization.